everyone, it's Sarah and welcome to my crochet channel. Today's video I'm going to show you how to crochet my sparkle candy baskets. They're sweet little baskets. They measure about 5 inches across and about 3 inches tall. We stitch them with double crochets, then we move to single crochets, stitching in the eye of the stitch, and I'll show you how to do that. And then we add this fun little trim that sort of sticks out and looks super cute. And the reason I call them sparkle baskets is because I used the sparkle yarns, and I made these in Christmas colors. It's a fun way to use up some of your leftover Christmas yarns, maybe from a few years ago, but also you can make these in any colors that you want to for any occasion or celebration that you want to. They're super quick to make and super fun. Now you can find this free crochet pattern on my blog, and as always, I'll put that blog link down in the notes underneath this video. To make a candy basket, you're going to need 2 or more colors. I'm only using 2. You can use 2 or 3. You can even use 4 or change colors every row if you want to. I'm going to be using 1 ounce of my green, and I'm going to use a 1/2 ounce of my red sparkle. Now I love this yarn from Hobby Lobby. It's called the Sparkle or Metallic, and you can use any medium weight number 4 yarn that you have. Now there are some other yarns that also have sparkle. Red Heart Super Saver has sparkle. I believe Karen's Simply Soft now has a sparkle, and the Karen Party also has a sparkle. Michael's has a sparkle, so you can find sparkle yarns anywhere, and all that is yarn that has a metallic thread running through it so that it sparkles. And you know what else? You don't have to use a sparkle if you don't want to. You can just use any medium weight number 4 yarns you have on hand. We're going to be holding 2 strands together. Don't panic, I'll show you how to do that. But we're going to be stitching with our K hook, which is a 6.50 millimeter crochet hook. You'll need a needle to weave in your ends, and then you'll need a pair of scissors. Another thing you'll also need is a stitch marker. Let me grab mine here. And that's because we're going to begin by stitching with double crochets, and then we're going to be switching to single crochets, and we're not going to be joining, we're going to be doing continuous rounds on those rows. And so it's a good idea to have a stitch marker. If you don't have a stitch marker, you can use another piece of yarn just to pull through and mark that stitch. Or you can do without it and live dangerously. The other thing I want to recommend that you might have on hand is a coffee filter. And I know that sounds like the funniest thing ever, but if you're going to put candy that's already pre-wrapped in these, that's totally fine. But if you want to put some candy inside that's not pre-wrapped, maybe it's your old-fashioned candy, or maybe some cupcakes or something, or some cookies, use this as a gift. You can slide a regular old coffee filter inside, and that will protect the inside of your basket. Just a little tip that I learned. We're going to be stitching the basket using 2 strands of yarn for the whole project, and we'll be holding those together. Now there's a couple of ways that you can do that. You can take your skein of yarn and you can pull from one on the inside and one on the outside and sort of unwind it as you go, which is what I'm going to be doing. Another thing that you can do is you can roll it into 2 balls and then put your 2 balls in one of these baskets or containers so they don't roll all over the place. If you have a yarn bowl, that will work also, of course. Working off but 1 strand from each of the balls of yarn. I'm just going to do like I said and pull it as I go, pulling 1 strand from the inside and 1 strand from the outside. I'm still going to throw it in my yarn container there, and that way I can work as I go. When you're holding two strands of yarn together, we have to be careful that we don't let one droop and one get tight. We have to just keep, and what I do is just pull them out this way and make sure they stay together. Just do that as I go. All right, so we're going to begin with our slip knot. And this is what I'm calling my color 1, which is going to be the main color of my basket. All right, we're going to chain 5. We're going to join this chain 5 into a circle, yarn over, pull that through the loop, and then we'll snug that down and tie that stay knot. Now, if you prefer to use the magic circle here, that will work just fine. We're going to put our hook in, pull up a loop, and chain 3. As we work this row, we are going to be stitching over this tail of yarn. Our chain 3 counts as 1, and so we're going to stitch 9 more double crochets. Yarn over, go in, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through the first 2, yarn over, and go through the next 2. All right, so I have my chain 3 and 1, so I need to stitch 8 more double crochets. Make sure we grab both those loops, we keep them together. All right, let me see if I have 10. Here's my chain 3, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and I need 2 more. So let me get a little more yarn out here. One and 2. All right, now I am going to join, move those strings out of the way, to the top of my chain 3 with a slip stitch and chain 3. All right, pull some more yarn out, and it looks a little bit like a cup, doesn't it? All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to turn it over. We're going to pull that string that we stitched over, and that's going to flatten that out and close that hole. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and weave these strings in. I like to go ahead and take care of it so it's already done and I don't have to come back and do it. If you're one who likes to wait to the end of a project to weave your ends in, you certainly can. So I'm going one way and then the other. Another thing, when you're using 2 strands of yarn, if you don't have a big needle that will fit both those together, you can weave it in with a smaller needle. Just weave each strand in individually. All right. All right, I'm going to go ahead and cut that. And so for row 1, I have 10 double crochets. I joined to my chain 3 that counted as my first and chained 3. And I used 2 strands together. For row 2, my chain 3 counts as my first double crochet. I'm going to double crochet in the same stitch as my chain 3. Now I'm going to stitch 2 double crochets in each of those double crochets around. One and 2. 2 double crochets in each of those 10 double crochets around. We'll repeat this all the way around and join back to our chain 3. I stitched 2 double crochets in each stitch around. We had 10 in the first row, so we have 20 for row 2. We're going to join to our chain 3 with a slip stitch and chain 3. And now basically for row 3, we're going to repeat what we did on row 2. Double crochet in the same stitch as our chain 3, and then 2 double crochets in each of those double crochets around. Two double crochets in each of those 20 double crochets around, and we'll repeat that all the way around and join back to our chain 3. I completed row 3, 2 double crochets in each of those 20. I joined to my chain 3 and chained 3. Now we're going to do a technique called back loop only. We're still stitching double crochets, and we're only going to stitch 1 in each stitch, but we're going to be working in the back loops only. So if you look at the top of your edge, you'll see there are loops on this side and loops on this side. The loops up here are your front loops. The loops back here are your back loops. And so we're going to be stitching our double crochets in the back loops only. So yarn over, only go in the back loop, and stitch your double crochet. 1 double crochet in each of those 40 double crochets around, and remember our chain 3 counts as our first, and we're stitching in the back loops only. And you'll notice there'll be a line there, and that line is going to help your basket form its shape. All right, so I'll pick up my crochet hook here. 1 double crochet in each of those double crochets around, stitching in the back loop only, all the way around, and we'll join back to the top of our chain 3. I completed row 4, 1 double crochet in each stitch around, and stitching in the back loop only, so we have this line going all the way around the bottom of our bowl, and that's just going to help our bowl sit like it should and the sides come up like it should. We're going to join to the chain 3 with a slip stitch. We're not going to cut our yarn, but we are going to grab our next color, and again I'm using 2 strands of my red yarn, or color 2, and bringing that in. We're going to leave our green attached. We're not going to cut our yarn. For row 5, we're going to begin with the chain 1, and now we're going to place 1 single crochet in each of the double crochets around. Go in, pull up a loop, yarn over, and go through both loops. 1 single crochet in each of the double crochets, working all the way around our basket. I've stitched 1 single crochet in each of the double crochets around. And now what we're going to do is we're not going to join. We're going to ignore that chain 1, and we're going to go in the first single crochet over here. And what we're going to be doing is stitching in what's called the eye of the single crochet. So we're going to take our hook, and instead of going through the loops up here, we're going to go right in between those 2 loops right there and stitch our single crochet. Now we're not going to finish this one because we're going to grab our green yarn, because we're going to do 2 rows of our main color. So we'll pull that through those 2 loops. We'll take our stitch marker and mark that as our last single crochet, and now we're going to stitch 1 single crochet in each of the single crochets around, working in the eye of the single crochet. It'll be it'll be a lot easier for you to see with this green yarn. All right, so I'm going to go in this next single crochet. I'm going to go in between those two there and go right inside and stitch my single crochet. We usually stitch up here, but we're stitching in what's called the eye of the single crochet. We're still stitching single crochets. We're just putting them in a little bit different place. And see how that looks? It makes a little V-type line there. All right, so we'll go in and stitch our single crochet, one single crochet in each of the eyes of the single crochets. We'll do this all the way around, just like we did on the first row. I completed this row, stitching one single crochet in each single crochet, stitching my stitches in what we call the eye, which is in between those two little sets of loops, all the way around. Now, I'm not going to be changing colors this row because I'm going to be making another row of the main color. So I put my stitch marker in to mark my row. And now I'm going to do another row of single crochets, stitching in the eye of each single crochet. We didn't join here. We're just doing continuous rows. And also you'll notice that I left my red yarn attached. And that's because after this row of green, I'm going to do another row of the red so that I have two rows of a different color in there for contrast. All right, so I'm going to continue all the way around, stitching one single crochet in each of the single crochets around, working in the eye of my single crochets. I've completed that second row of my main color, stitching one single crochet in each of those stitches around, again stitching in the eye of the single crochet. Isn't that pretty how that turns out? All right, so this is going to be my last single crochet for this row. So I'm going in the eye, I'm pulling up a loop. I'm going to be changing colors. So I'll finish that single crochet with my new color. And then I'll do one more row of single crochet, stitching one single crochet in the eye of the stitches. I've got my stitch marker here, so I'm going to mark my row. And you know, you don't have to if we're just doing a few rows like this, but it does help you keep track of what row you're on when you're doing continuous rows. All right, so I'm going to stitch one single crochet in each of those single crochets around, working in the eye of each of the single crochets. So I've completed that last row of single crochets, stitching in the eye of the single crochets. And again, I really love how this looks. We're going to go ahead and cut off our red one, which is color 2. I've gone ahead and taken out my stitch marker, and we're going to slip stitch in the top of the next stitch. And now I'm going to bring in my green again because I'm going to do my trim with the green. And the way we're going to do the trim is we're going to chain 1 and slip stitch in the next stitch. Chain 1 and slip stitch in the next stitch. Now we're stitching in the tops where we usually do. We're not stitching in the eye of our stitches this time. All right, so chain 1, go in and stitch a slip stitch. Chain 1 and slip stitch in the next stitch. Chain 1, and of course our slip stitch is go in, pull up a loop, and then pull that loop through the loop on your hook, just in case you don't remember what the slip stitch is. Chain 1, slip stitch in the next stitch. Chain 1, slip stitch in the next stitch. And that gives you this pretty little edge all around the top of our basket or bowl, whichever you're going to call it, because it is a candy bowl or a candy basket. All right, and so we'll just repeat this all the way around and join back where we started. Chain 1, slip stitch in the next. And we're slip stitching in every stitch, not every other, just in case you're wondering. Chain 1, slip stitch in the next stitch. Chain 1, slip stitch in the next stitch. Isn't that pretty? I've completed that fun little trim all the way around the edge of my basket. And I'm back over here where I started. Here's my last slip stitch, chain 1, and I'm going to join to that first chain 1 with a slip stitch. And then I'm going to go underneath and pull that loop, there we go, to the inside and then tie off, there we go, to the inside. Had my hook facing the wrong way. There we go. That way it has a much more seamless look as it goes around. And I do have a little bit of weaving in to do here. And then I'm going to show you how to make that fun little bow for the front of your basket. My basket's all tidied up, and now I'm going to add the bow. So I'm going to take 2 strands of my red. You can do 1 strand of each color or even a completely different color if you want to. All right, so we'll make our slip knot, and we're going to chain 35 to 40 chains. It's up to you how long you want your bow to be. I'm going to go ahead and chain 40 for this one. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I've chained my 40 chains. I'm going to go ahead and cut my yarn, tie that off, and I'm going to pull that tight on the end and then tie a knot. And this is just going to keep my chain from coming undone. Give it a good hard pull and go ahead and just clip that. And then I'll come back over to this end, same thing, give it a good hard pull and tie a knot in the end. We don't want our chain to come undone on our pretty little basket. All right, now you just need to decide where you want your bow. I'm going to put mine right here. And so what I do is I go through 2 of those loops like that. I grab that chain and just pull it through. Try to even it up and tie my bow. I always tie a little knot first. That way if the bow comes undone, I don't lose it. And then I like to do the bunny ear bow. Let me show you. I take 2 bunny ears, cross them, and pull that one through the bottom. I think it makes a nice bow. And that's how you make the simple little bow for your basket. Now this one has 40 chains. This one here, let me grab this red one, it only had 35. So you can see the bow's just a little bit smaller. And I did 2 strands of the red and white so that it would look kind of like peppermint. So here's the 3 that I made. This one is green with a variegated sparkle yarn. This one is red and white, of course, sparkle yarn. And I used 1 strand each of the red and white for the bow. And this one, of course, is the one we made together, which is green and red, and a nice big red bow. And there are lots of different things that you can do for these. You can add buttons or charms or appliques. And remember, if you're going to use candy or goodies that's not pre-wrapped, a coffee filter will work perfect inside to keep your candy basket or bowl from getting sticky and crummy.